Yeah, no, plans to list are well underway. I think we looked into the process at the beginning of the year, and we had various advisors who have been working with closely in the process. And that process itself has been a very good process for us because it's really helped TransCentury to sort of move to the next level in terms of the rigor in which we really operate as a public company. So we're very excited about that. We're very excited about coming onto the exchange. We've been in the process of seeking the regulatory approvals and working together with both the CMA and the NSE. And we're really looking forward to that process coming to fruition, subject to the regulatory approvals coming through, hopefully quite shortly. Mm-hmm. TransCentury is a high-growth company. We've grown on average 50% year on year, so quite high. So it's a very similar stock to an equity bank, for example, which shows tremendous growth year on year. So from that perspective, it's an interesting counter. I think the second thing that makes it an interesting counter is it's pretty unique in terms of the focus. TransCentury today is focused in the infrastructure space, most specifically in the industries of power, transport, and engineering. And really, if you look across actually most of the African stock exchanges, it really is that's focused on infrastructure. I think you get some cement companies, etc., but no real infrastructure stock. So that position, it's a unique stock on one side, and it's also a growth stock on the other side. So I think that's what really makes it, I think, quite an interesting opportunity. Mm-hmm. If you look historically at how TransCentury has grown, it's really grown from two axes. The first axis is basically, let's call it organic growth, and that's basically been really focusing on growth of our existing businesses, which is really putting in more capital to grow the business, to grow capacity, to grow geographically. We'll continue to do that. So you see a lot of our existing businesses growing. A good example is Tanelec, our transformer business that we bought off ABB, one of the largest electrical companies in the world. That was a business really focused on Tanzania. Today we've grown it to focus on Kenya, to focus on Uganda, to focus on Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, all of these new markets. And 2 weeks ago we just made an acquisition in Zambia, which will really help to see us solidify our position in that market. So that organic growth will continue. The second axis is acquisitive growth, where we actually have gone into new areas and new companies. Again, that will continue to happen. And that will continue to happen really in our key areas of focus in terms of the power side, the transport side, and the engineering side. One of the things that is really critical to be competitive is to have scale. Because without scale, it becomes much more difficult for you to compete, especially with the trends in the global market today. Okay, so building scale is very important. With what's happened in terms of the integration of the East African community, it's fantastic because that's creating an opportunity to serve a larger market. But beyond that, as TransCentury, we started off with a very small company which had revenues of less than $3 million. 5 years later, we had grown that to over $80 million. And another 5 years from now, we want to grow that again into many hundreds of millions of dollars. So the larger you become, then the more competitive and efficient you become, typically. So we want to do that. And the way to do that is not just to stick to one country or one market. You really need to take the principles that are replicable in different markets and really look to grow their scale.
Would you have a target of how many countries you want to be in, say, in a number of years?
We do. So typically what we do is we've looked to expand across East, Central, and Southern Africa. And the reason for that is because there's much more commonality in terms of the trading blocks that are apparent. So you'll see us, we've solidified East Africa. We're moving more towards Central African and Southern African opportunities, DRC, Zambia, and then further down into Mozambique, etc. So that will continue in terms of that expansion. But I think the next phase is to look at other markets, which are not necessarily as easy for us to tap into. So we will be looking at West Africa, larger markets like Nigeria, and other very high growth markets like Angola and these types of markets. But in any growth phase, it's important to have horizons. I think the first horizon is just getting things right in the markets which are most natural to you, which is what we've been trying to do. And then we'll identify, the next phase of growth, which is the next horizon, which will be the really high potential markets, which have been a little bit more difficult to get to. Looking now to go further back and not just do cables, transformers, and switchgear, but to look at doing much more in the power generation space. And there are many interesting opportunities, especially for baseload power. And for us, really, the solutions in baseload power are going to be technologies such as gas, where you have it, technologies such as coal, as well as technologies such as geothermal, which we're very excited about, because that's how you're going to be able to get power at scale to serve these economies.